Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm Marcus Peter. The Virgin Mary's part in history doesn't begin and end with her fiat. In fact, it actually continues throughout the ebbs and flows of the Church's life in human history. Joining me to have a conversation about this is popular Catholic author Mike Aquilina, award-winning author of more than 70 books on Catholic history, doctrine, and devotion. His works have been translated into innumerable languages, and he's hosted 11 television series and several documentary films. He's also a frequent guest on this program and numerous other Catholic radio programs. Mike, my friend, good to hear from you. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Marcus. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Very well. It's a joyous day, very blessed. And you and I get to talk about, first of all, this book of yours, History's Queen, but second of all, our Blessed Virgin Mother. What could be happier?
That's right. That's right. What a great subject. And Christians have been talking about this since the beginning of the church.
Fulton Sheen had this phrase. He called Mary the world's first love. When I was a Protestant and I encountered that, I encountered Sheen in my anti-Catholic phase. I thought to myself, that's excessive. But he speaks of her with such effusive love. And so when I saw this title, History's Queen, I realized how right Sheen was and how right you are. And I think it's a good way for us to start in phrasing why we keep returning to Mary.
Because Mary keeps returning to us. My point in History's Queen is that she seems to come to the church in every age in a way in which the people need her. You know, so in the early years of the church, she is this maternal figure. She's the mother of Christ, of course, but as such, she's also the mother of all of those who have become brothers and sisters of Christ. She is a mother in the family of the church, and she's this quiet, constant presence. She's the one who makes the church a home rather than a bachelor pad. She's always there. The church celebrates her feast days from very early in history. The church celebrates her presence. One of the earliest bestsellers, you could say, in the Christian world was a book called The Gospel of Mary. And it's not a gospel that puts Mary at the center. It's rather the story of her early life and the way she was prepared by God to bear the Messiah to Israel, the way she was prepared by God to bear the Messiah to the world. And it becomes this great bestseller. Now, why is that? Why is that? Because Mary is this mysterious figure in the Gospels. She's there. She has this quiet presence once again. But the people who read the Gospels, the people who love Jesus Christ, want to know more about Jesus Christ, and they want to know more about his family. They want to know about his mother, this remarkable woman who was chosen from all time, chosen from all of history and from all women to bear Jesus to the world. She's a point of fascination. She remains a point of fascination today after we've been reading these books like this book, for centuries. It's remarkable that she has this hold on the church, on Christians everywhere, and she's had it for so long.
You're going to kick me as I make this pun. But at the same time, for a culture that has rejected, in fact, frankly, abhorred at this point, the meaning of true femininity and receptivity, all those things that are beautiful about the feminine genius, Mary can seem quite contrary.
Oh, without a doubt. But I think also nature is pretty stubborn, and nature is really ineradicable. I mean, we can tamp it down, but it's going to try to find its way back, and I think that it does so in so many people, and we're seeing something of a backlash against that particular kind of feminism now. I think Pope John Paul II had tried to articulate this, that there is a feminine genius, and I think we see it perfectly in the Blessed Virgin Mary.
Life finds a way, and in this case, nature finds a way, and that's why God has given us Mary, not just as a natural example, but because of her life confirmed in grace, as a grace-filled example. Can you please speak to how in this sense, Mary reveals to us what it means to be really human. We can't be fully human without grace.
Well, look at Revelation. Look at Revelation, and you'll see how she's revealed to us. Because there we see God revealing in the way that's perfect, in the way that's designed for the way we're built. The way He built us, right? So we look at Revelation, and we find Mary prefigured from the beginning of the Bible. We find her prefigured in Eve. Now that's something that the earliest church fathers recognized. You're going to see that motif begin to appear in the 100s. Not long after our Lord's ascension to heaven, the church is referring to Mary as the new Eve. This new Eve, beginning a new thing. And we find kind of hints at that in the New Testament as well. But to get back to Revelation, if we're going to talk about how these things are revealed, well, we should look at the revelation that's divine. And there she is. She's there in the Old Testament prefigured, but she's there abundantly in the New Testament, again, in these quiet ways. She's there at the beginning of St. Matthew's Gospel, which is the beginning of the New Testament, right? And she's there as the major player with St. Joseph in this drama of the Messiah's coming into the world. And we see her doing so many beautiful things. The text presents her as manifesting the Lord, God incarnate, to the Gentiles, right? Because the Magi come to her and they find Jesus, this expected king. They find him with his mother and they worship him there. Well, we still find Jesus with his mother, and we worship him there. So this happens from the beginning of the gospel, and it's continued throughout the other gospels. We find her there in all of them in some form. At the fourth gospel, at St. John's gospel, we find Jesus initiating his public ministry in response to a plea from his mother. They have no wine. She states a simple fact, and it says, and he says to her, "Woman, my hour has not yet come." It's not time for that, but he advances the hour because of the plea of his mother. Now, that's a remarkable thing. Here is God himself, right, saying that I'm changing my plans for her. Now, what does that tell us? God has perfect foreknowledge. God is omniscient. Jesus is God, and he's changing his plans, which means that was part of the plan so that we could know this. We could know of Mary, who's infallible in her intercession, that we could have this model of people going to Mary and getting an answer to their prayers. And we could see that through all of time. So if you're asking, how is this revealed? It's revealed there in the New Testament in these powerful ways, so that we know, like the Magi knew, and we know, like those people at Cana knew, to go to Mary, who is infallible in intercession, and who will reveal her Son to us in the most perfect way, in the way that God intended from the beginning of creation, from the beginning of the book of Genesis. And of course, this finds its culmination in the book of Revelation, where she's manifest to us as the Queen of heaven and earth. And we can be sure then of her as our mother and our intercessor, with this beautiful access to Jesus Christ. And we're there with all of her children, all of her other offspring, as it says, so that we're near to Jesus at all times.
I'm talking with Mike Aquilina. He is a church historian, a tremendous author, and frankly, a holy man. And he and I have been talking about Mary as not just the queen of the church, and therefore the central figure in salvation history. She is also the queen of all history. And so we're talking about her role being played out in salvation history, why she keeps showing up even in modern history to this very day, and what she can continue to teach us. And we will continue on the other side of the break with this conversation. We're talking about his book, History's Queen, published by Ave Maria Press. Stay tuned. I'm Marcus Peter. Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm Marcus Speed. I'm talking with Mike Aquilina, award-winning author. More than 70 books on Catholic history, doctrine, and devotion. His books have been translated into many languages. We're talking about one of his books, History's Queen by Ave Maria Press. Mike, we would be remiss if we did not also shed some light on this great chaste guardian of the Virgin, her true spouse, Joseph, and how his role in Mary's life illuminates her, but her fidelity to God in a great way illuminates him.
Without a doubt, and I think that Joseph he sets a model for us in his modesty, in his unwillingness to put himself forward as the center of attention, as the center of events. He really does model paternity in many ways, because the mother often has the primary contact with the children, and so you have to stand back and you have to respect the sphere of the mother in the life of the child. Saint Joseph never says a word in the Gospels. Not only that, we never see anyone but angels speaking to Saint Joseph. So he leads this quiet life. And it's a life of contemplation because he's always got his mind on the needs of his wife, the needs of his son. And this is the way he carries forward. This is what we know about St. Joseph because this is what's been revealed by God about St. Joseph. He really is this model for spousal love, and he's this model for parental love. He's a worker, and we venerate him for that. He set a model for work that was followed by his son. His son was his apprentice. His son stepped into the role that St. Joseph had as carpenter, as craftsman, and as a provider for the family, because Joseph vanishes at a certain point, and according to tradition, we know that he died. He died a happy death because he died in the presence of Jesus and Mary. So he passes on, and Jesus picks up where Joseph left off, and this is a beautiful thing. We do see this icon of family life in the Holy Family of Nazareth. This life that we say is hidden. It's called the hidden life, but yet it reveals so much about them, just because of those little glimpses it gives us in the Gospels, and what we can learn from those little glimpses.
When we look at Mary too, we also see that every single, like you rightly mentioned, every single mystery in the life of Christ is in some way touched by Mary. So she is touched by all of these mysteries, to be sure, but those mysteries have a Marian color, so to speak, as well. And I know I'm not over-speaking here, but could you please help shed light on that?
Well, that's something, again, that's been noticed by Christians from the beginning. We find St. Ignatius of Antioch in the 100s. This is around 107 A.D., so we're talking very early in Christian history. And St. Ignatius is someone who knew the apostles themselves. He received the gospel from the apostles themselves. He was discipled by the apostles themselves. So he presents this mystery of Mary. And he says that Mary's mystery was shielded from the devil. The devil could look at it and see that something was going on here. And yet the devil could not penetrate the mystery, could not figure out what was going on because it was cloaked from him. It was cloaked from even an angelic intelligence like that. And so Mary's mystery is something that's preserved by God. It's revealed by God, and I believe that it's open to us by grace when we give ourselves over to conversion to Jesus Christ. It's Jesus himself who shows us his mother gradually over time. That's the point of my book, really, is that she always comes to the church as mother in the way that the church needs at the moment. So that early on, when there's a Christian empire, then after the persecution of the Romans, there's the Byzantine Empire, Mary is presented to the people as a protector from the people who would invade, from the non-believers who would invade and take over and take the faith of the Christian people. In the Middle Ages, when plague hits, Mary is presented in the Pietà, holding the body of her dead son on Good Friday. And why is she presented that way? So that the people will know that Mary understands. Mary grieves with you as you're holding your dying children, your dead children. You are suffering the worst thing that you could possibly imagine, and Mary is there with you, having suffered it herself. Mary always presents herself to the people of the church in the ways that we need.
And that's also precisely why we can also genuinely say that we need Mary, which
Yes.
I would imagine that non-Catholics would balk at the statement, and yet it is so fundamentally true for us to be faithful disciples of Christ.
Yes, yes. And again, this is something that's built into creation. It's built into our very nature. We have this need for a mother. We have a need for a mother. Even Jesus himself had this need for a mother, and his need was satisfied by Mary. What a grace he's given us by giving us his mother, to be our mother, and to continue this down through the ages. We don't have to live in the year 4 BC in order for Mary to mother us. She's still mothering us the way I'm sure she's still mothering Jesus, because that's why she's in heaven with him. She is always his mother. She's always mothering him. God, who needs nothing by nature, willed to have these needs, these human needs that would be satisfied by human parents. And then he extended the office of those parents to all the people he welcomes into his household, into his home, into his family, into the church, which is all of those things. So this is this great privilege that we've been given. It's this great joy we have, and we should celebrate it. The month of May is given to Mary traditionally, and we celebrate this every day of this month. Maybe on one particular day, you can make a little pilgrimage to a Marian shrine that you know is nearby. It could be at a college or a church. There are all kinds of them here in Pittsburgh that are just built into dead end streets and that sort of thing, where you can go and visit the Blessed Mother, visit a shrine, a statue, and pray a rosary. Make it a quiet celebration. It's mommy time. It's time that you can spend with your mother the way Christians have always done it, because we've always made Marian pilgrimage.
The other thing for us to remember that you rightly highlight, following some of the work of Rachel Fulton Brown, is that Mary has always had, and I won't say central, the liturgy is about Christ, but at least an ancillary part in the liturgical life of the church.
Oh, yes. I mean, that's something that's been part of the life of the church. We've had feasts on the calendar from very early on, and there's been a great reappropriation of this, a new appreciation of it by scholars, not only Catholic scholars, but non-believing scholars. Feminist scholars are recovering this evidence of the celebration of Marian feasts early in the church's life, because they believe that this was suppressed, and it has been. They're right about this, and they're helping us to bring the good news out in the way it was brought out in those early centuries. Mary is mentioned in the liturgies along with her son, not as an equal to her son, but as someone who's essential to the telling of the story of the gospel. You can't tell the story of the gospel unless you tell the story of Mary. And
that's also precisely why the more quote-unquote Marian we become, the more steeped we are in Jesus' gospel.
Absolutely. And the more we steep ourselves in Jesus' gospel, the more Marian we'll become. If we're reading attentively, if we're reading with the church, if we're reading with the tradition, if we're reading in the heritage of the saints should be our Bible study group, because they've tested. Think about it. They're the ones whose ideas have been tested by centuries and centuries. Other theological ideas come and go. Other theological fads come and go. But the saints preserve the truth about Jesus from the reading of the gospel. They test their ideas over time, and time is like this great sieve. It keeps the good stuff, and it lets the other stuff pass through. So let your Bible study group be the saints. Read the scriptures in the light of the saints, and you'll be reading it safely, and you'll be reading it in a very rewarding way.
Mike, as a sort of final exhortation, aside from me telling everyone to get a copy of your book, History's Queen by Mike Aquilina, exploring Mary's pivotal role from age to age, aside from that exhortation, for everyone listening right now, we can either take her for granted or veer on the excessive in the way we think about Mary. What's a good, virtuous way to engage this relationship with our Blessed Mother?
Well, by making her part of your regular prayer, and by going to her regularly. A lot of people pray the Rosary every day, and that's a good, quiet way to do it. The Rosary keeps your mind focused on the mysteries of Jesus Christ. It focuses on these 20 mysteries of the life of Christ. So over the course of a week, you watch those mysteries unfold before your eyes, and you're not watching them alone. You're standing with Mary, his mother, who had a special interest in the unfolding of his life as it was happening. So you're there with a witness to it, and not any witness, but the most loving witness of the life of Jesus Christ. And you're meditating on those mysteries all through your life, and you're standing there with Mary. She has a way of moderating these things. She has a way of taking you to her son, of pointing to her son. That's the way she appears in icons. It's the way she appears in Matthew's Gospel and in John's.
Mike, tremendous joy as always. Thank you very much for your time.
Hey, thanks again for having me on, Marcus.
My guest has been Mike Aquilina, award-winning author of more than 70 books on Catholic history, doctrine, and devotion. We've been talking about his book, History's Queen, a beautiful presentation of why Mary has shown up time and time again in human history. You get a copy of it. Stay tuned. I'm Marcus Peter.